Hello and welcome. My name is Tom. This is the Enthusiasm Project, Season 4, Episode 21, and you know what that means. It is the season finale. Finally. Finale. Our dog Finley is here. So this is the last episode of Season 4, and as I talked about last week, it's not going to be just me. I have a very special guest. Super hard to work with her people to book this whole thing. This has been months in the making, and that is the one and only Heather Ramirez, my wife. Hello.
Hello.
It's been a while since you've been here.
I have.
Yeah.
Or yes, it is.
Sure. It's been a while, and what I thought would be a good episode to do today to wrap up this season. There's been a lot of personal change and growth this season, and that has been a very fun thing to document, in no small part due to you, because you're the one who suggested we do the quote-unquote secret series earlier this season, where it was kind of documenting leaving my job, going into full-time content creation land, and now it's almost 3 months into that, almost exactly-ish 3 months from that, and so I thought it would be a cool thing to revisit at the end to sort of see, now that the honeymoon phase is sort of over with that transition, and just break it down and, let's just sort of revive the secret series in a not so secret way to wrap up the season, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's sort of the context of what we're doing. And it fits in because I don't know if you listened to every episode, but last week I talked a lot about how like the month of May was super weird and numbers were down and all these things that I would normally be able to just would just fall off my shoulders and I would think about it weighed very differently just because of, hey, I don't have another job now, so this stuff is different now. And so everyone listening, if you listen to that, should already have that context. I don't really need to rehash all of that. And then since then, I've gotten a number of incredibly kind messages and emails and stuff from people who were really kind of set me straight and trying to reprioritize what I am focusing on, more importantly than just the numbers are bad, and the actual impact you can make on someone doing this stuff. So that's kind of where we are at right now.
That sounds great.
All right. Well, we did it. Anyway.
Okay, I'm trying to think of ways that we can conclude the season, conclude the secret series. A couple of themes come to mind, and we can just, peruse down the alleys as you would like. So I feel like looking back, there are a couple things that stick out to me. One is I think that your relationship with money has changed or evolved, at least.
Okay, interesting.
I feel about that. Number two, I think your philosophy around someone's, I don't want to say job, but I guess so. Because we all have to generate money to be a human. That's just,
it is expensive to be a person. Yes.
But I think that, you the thing that sticks out to me is that you told me the number one priority is to never have to give up your freedom again.
Yes.
More so than, you would take on a bunch of stuff that you wouldn't want to do.
Yeah. Before
you get a job again. So I think that's an interesting thing to talk about.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, I don't want to take too much time talking about this because it almost feels like you're rubbing it in and bragging about it, but your lifestyle has completely changed.
Yeah, I'm a lifestyle influencer now.
But I think
it has.
I think that from the outside looking in, from some people who are not or can't imagine what it's like,
right.
Or I'm thinking about you before, let's say 2 years ago, 3 years ago, your only example of someone doing YouTube full time was me, and I was a bad example back then. I'm probably still a bad example, but
you're the best example.
I know.
Yes.
Now that you are your own example, what are some things that maybe people don't realize or expect or,
Sure.
foresee. Because I think like, I know this conversation is about you, but to me, I think that there's something super magical that you've been able to not make a living off of YouTube. That's secondary. But the fact that you have been able to take your passion and turn that into your full-time thing in a way where you have the freedom and flexibility to do it however you want to do it. I think that's like YouTube is just the enabler to make that happen.
Yeah.
And I think that people don't, they just think like, oh, I need to make money from YouTube ads. Like it could just go so much further than that.
Yeah. Or just I need to make as much money as possible at
Right.
all times and rise and grind and all that stuff.
There's nothing wrong with rising.
There's nothing wrong with you gotta grind and you gotta rise and all the things. But
So
sure.
anyway, it's up to you how you want to take it.
I like all of those, and I think the whole reason I want to explore this is not I'm the subject and it is my podcast. You are listening to me. Yes, I'm aware of this, but also it is a case study, and
Yeah.
and I want to just put that out there for other people, just like we did with the first batch of episodes with the Secret series, because you mentioned me like your lifestyle, and a couple years ago you couldn't imagine. I never would have ever imagined myself being somebody who did this, who left the job and did the thing.
And I met that person who
Yeah.
didn't imagine this.
Yeah, and that I
remember
would
that
not
part.
have
I fell
bet
in love
money.
with that person.
I would not have bet like any amount of money. I'm like, yeah, that guy's gonna do that one day. Like it was. I don't know who you were talking to yesterday, but I heard you
Doc.
saying, oh, it was your stream. Yeah, you were on a
Yeah.
stream with Dog Rock. That's what it was. Where you're saying like
Which,
Tom
by the
was.
way, he says you're too small potatoes to be on his stream.
Oh, yeah, that's
I'm
fair.
kidding.
I gotta grow a little bit.
He wants you on his stream.
But you were on his stream, and he was saying, you were saying that Tom's plan was like teaching is the career. That's the job. That's what you went to school for. That's what you do to retire. There's ups and downs, and it just sort of is what it is.
And I think there's an overall trend because you know me, passion economy stuff. I look at things from a very big picture now,
Right.
And I think that there is definitely a trend where whether you are excited and energized about your job is something that matters to people, whereas before it was like you just do it for the paycheck, and then all your passion stuff is for when you can find the time between family, work, and other obligations. But I think that's what's cool about living in the time that we do, is that there is that it's never been as easy as it is now to be able to find a combination of being able to make money, you not only utilizing the skill set that you have, your strengths, but then something you're really passionate about.
Yeah.
Even if you are working for somebody else, but especially if you can enjoy your own freedom.
Right. And that this sort of ties into it, because I was reading a thing, and I think I heard you talking about it with all the passion economy stuff, but a big thing that people are into now is finding, it's not just like I want to find a product or a service or whatever, but it's like I want to find a product or a service that comes from a company or a provider that like aligns with my values, which isn't really something that has ever been, a part of it before. And I was just this morning reading an article. It was an article that was called like, it's time to ditch Google Chrome. And it was all these reasons about why you shouldn't use Chrome because, the way Google takes all your data and all this stuff. But it wasn't really like the most effective article because it didn't really provide any. It was like, use this other browser or this one over here, but it didn't tell you like, well, what do you do when everything's integrated into this browser? How do you actually transfer it over? Anyway, it led to a conversation of like different browsers. And in the comment thread for that article, a bunch of people were suggesting, I forget what it was, and it's probably best I don't say it anyway. It wasn't like Firefox or anything, but it was another browser I hadn't really heard of. And then people were like, oh no, don't use that because their owner is like a very vocal anti-vaxxer, anti this, that, the other thing, which has literally nothing to do with how good of a web browser it is or how it manages your data. But it was literally like people like, thanks for letting me know. I'm glad I didn't put over to this. And I was like, wow, like it really does it goes into this sense of everything that I do. Like I want it to come from a company and a provider that's in line with what I do. And also, furthermore, a sense of sort of like jadedness that comes from, it seems like, at least when it comes to big stuff like that, the more you scratch the surface, like there's just everything is a problem. Like there's, the this company I think might align with something I do, and then you dig a little deeper and it's like, oh, it turns out they do this horrible thing and this company does this and that. Anyway, coming back to something like YouTube and content creation, those things can happen and people have their secrets, but a lot of times, especially when you're in the realm of just the single person doing their thing, it is a lot easier to go like, I believe this and I feel this way. This person seems to do that. I connect with them, and it there might not be those skeletons in the closet. Like you can actually just make that.
Well, that's
connection.
what I think is so interesting about you as a case study, because you're so the extreme, and the way that you've executed is very unique, right? Like we've talked about this in the past couple of weeks. You're not just creator economy or passion economy. You're this like really interesting hybrid, which is where I think that we are going to see more. I think that's where the trend is going to be. Because I really do think that people, I mean, you have an online course, I think more content creators are going to use some kind of passion economy business model. And I think I really do believe that we're going to see the build out of the whole creator middle class thing.
Yeah. And that was the goal too, is like, we would all love, again, going back to Doc.
Be bajillionaires.
Yeah. As he had you admit yesterday, sure.
Yeah.
Nobody hates money here, but that's not necessarily the driving factor. The goal is like, can you just make a steady, secure, decent
Can you make the same
income?
amount of money you made at your full-time job doing your thing on your terms? I think that's like key. If we could go beyond that, of course. Yeah. But like, I think bare minimum, this is the goal. And the fact that you were it's not even that you were against it. It was literally like you could not see it. It's that whole thing where you're in the jar and you can't see the label because you're just inside the jar. And you have no idea like what's outside of that world. So you don't even think to consider.
And the thought of like, once you even have those thoughts, the idea of like, how do I shift to like it's a mountain I have to climb, and it's very overwhelming.
And you did it.
Yay! The end. Well, thanks for listening. So yeah, that's sort of where that went. But you talked about, I'll just kind of go down some of the stuff you said. One of the first things you said was my relationship with money has changed, because prior to that, I had my job where my full-time income had been coming for a decade. And that's where every year I got a modest little raise just because I kept working, and you get a raise every year. And it was more than enough to support us. It was more than enough to like pay the bills, put a little money into savings, and buy microphones and stuff. And then when the YouTube channel and stuff started generating revenue, that was great too. And it let me save a little more aggressively. It let me invest in business related stuff more. But it was also like, oh, look, it's like financially there was nothing to worry about at that time. And then to take half of that and just axe it away. So how has that changed over I don't even know that I know.
Well, I think that like your relationship with money.
Yeah, that's what you had said.
I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I that's why I was very curious when you said you think it has evolved and changed, because a big part of me is actually trying to not have it change, because I was always very responsible with my salaried income. I'd only had like the 2 full-time incomes, not for very long, so I didn't like get accustomed to this crazy lifestyle or anything. And a big part of me feeling comfortable with doing things on my own terms is seeing that consistency carry over. Like, oh, when I needed to save this much money every month, I can still do that. When I needed to or wanted to buy something, I can still do that. When I wanted to, we want to go out to eat or something, like feeling the consistency from my regular employment to self-employment is it brings like a feeling of security, and that so I'm sort of like trying to just make sure I can still do that. Yeah. So I don't know what that means, but
so maybe it's not that your relationship with money has changed. It's more of like maybe it's my observations of, I thought you would react a certain way.
Oh,
but you're not. So like, okay, here's
an example. Do tell.
We have a couple big purchases on the wish list that just came out of nowhere. One of the things that we want to do is build out this whole like in cabinet.
Yeah, like
wall,
in our
living
house,
room
when the house was
situation.
built, you could have like a built-in, very
Yeah.
beautiful like media center shelving thing, and I didn't do that just to save money at the time.
That's gonna be a couple $1,000.
That's
Then
gonna be
I
a
was
lot of
like, hey,
thousands.
babe, we should get a spa, like an outdoor spa, because our backyard is huge. We're never gonna get a pool because we have dogs and we like that they can
And
run around.
pools are very expensive.
Yeah, and then there's like just these other things. So to me, I'm just like, gosh, this guy has the freedom and the flexibility to do whatever he wants and make however much money he wants, however he can. Because you did it right? Like
I like this.
You built everything so that if you opened up a whole week's worth of consultations, boom, you can pay for the built-in, you can pay for the spa, and it would be done. Literally, you can make that in a week, and you won't.
Are you telling me something?
No, I mean, like, obviously do what you want. But I guess I'm just surprised that, like, I am surprised that you've stuck to your values so rigidly.
Oh, is it a good thing or a bad thing?
No, I think it's
Or just a thing?
I think it's a thing. I don't think that it's not the way that I would do it, but of course I'm going to support you however you want to do it. But it is interesting because I think that overall you are working less.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
sure.
which is the goal. Like having
Yeah.
2 full-time jobs down to 1, it wasn't to
No,
fill
but
up that
even
space.
like I don't even think you're working 40 hours a week.
No, probably not. Which was the goal. Like that was the goal.
Right. Which is like, I guess I'm curious about that because you could and make more, but you choose not to.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, a couple thoughts about that, which is one, after being in my like YouTube slump and talking to a lot of like creator friends and realizing like everybody's sort of in that, no one really understands the cause of it. But literally,
The
basically,
number slump.
everybody I've talked to, like their channels are like, it feels like they're dying right now. And of course, that means like revenue and all this stuff's cut in half. So it's not just me. That feels good. It's everybody. Then I feel bad for everybody. But something I was thinking, I was like, maybe for the summer, I could do 2 videos a week, or at the very least, because I randomly did a video on Monday last week. And it was what I liked about it, actually, even like numbers aside, was when my videos come out on Thursday, it's fun. And then I get very excited for the next Thursday and I have to like wait the week. And a week is a long time. And it's just my enjoyment of like making videos, sharing it, and that whole thing. And doing it on Monday was like just enough time where like, okay, the excitement of the video wore off and now a new video. And when that wears off, a new one. It was like, hey, this is kind of fun. Like there's always something to be excited about. Obviously you have to like make those videos to do that. And I was thinking, okay, I could do that at least for the summer just to see what effect it has, if any. And if it has no effect on things overall, then I know like, hey, there's no need to put in the extra time and do 2 videos a week. If it like makes everything go amazing, then hey, it was worth it because I have the time to do that. I could totally do 2 videos a week and it would be super reasonable. But a big thing too is like, it's after spending so many years working so many hours constantly, and then even in the off time working on the side hustle, being able to like focus on a thing, have my to-do list, check it off, and then just have the option to be done for the day, it feels really good. And I think I'm still recovering from like exhaustion that has just built up over the years because I still feel really tired all the time. And I know it's not because I'm like
slaving away.
Yeah, at least not in the same way. Probably not working 40 hours a week. And that was kind of the goal the whole time. Like, I don't want to have to do all of that kind of stuff. I want to be able to focus on what I need to focus on, when I need to focus on it, take a break, shift mentally, like exercise.
I guess I'm curious.
All that stuff.
I'm not, it's awesome that you've been able to be like, okay, here's some, in my opinion, relatively easy ways to make money doing what you're good at. And you're just like, nah.
Yeah, well,
and I just find that fascinating because, like, I'm all about the passion economy. I get that, like,
Well, okay, so I know one of the things you're talking about is consultations because I can book those, which are still available. It's just the rate is expensive and the slots are limited. And my thought behind that is if people don't book them, then I don't have to do them. It's not that I, like, literally every client I've ever had with a consultation, every consultation hour I've ever put up has been booked. Not to brag, but everyone has been booked and every client has been awesome. Which is great. So like every single person, huge, like
So right
wild
there,
variety
that
of person.
gives you guys, you listeners, an idea of the demand. Okay,
Sure.
For Tom's time.
Well, I wanted to paint the picture that the people I'm working with they're not nightmare customers or
but
not anything
also
like that.
painting the picture that there is definitely a demand.
Yeah,
like if you were to open up slots, they'd book for sure.
There's definitely a demand. The problem with the consultations, and if you're someone who's booked one, like I'm not talking about you, but the problem with it is how it fits into my schedule, and this is sort of a thing I've been like wrestling with because they're short. The consultations are an hour, but there is time to set up and time to tear down. So that's the whole process. It is 2 hours at least. Depending on it, there might be even more follow up. But the harder part is also like the prep work on my end. So it's like, here's 2 hours where you need to do something. If you do it in the morning, it affects the morning routine. If you do it in the afternoon, it affects that. I'm tired at the end of the day, so I know I'm not going to be performing as well. So I've moved consultations in the morning. Cool, then I'm better for those, but I'm not as good for my own stuff. Anytime I'm doing that, it is taking away from my. It's very disruptive to me working on my own stuff. That's the problem. That's the real problem. And the days that I've done like back to back consultations, it's just exhausting. It's like it feels exactly like when I was teaching my classes. Not that it's bad, but it's like I'm just dead at the end of it. And I just don't like that feeling. And I've thought of different ways, like, okay, what if there were a week a month that week is just consultation week and I'm not trying to like produce videos and do all this other stuff. It's just, I know my main thing is I'll just do consultations and I'll do that. Or even a day, 2 days a month or something where it's just that whole day, nothing else. It's just, 8 hours of consultations or something. The problem is I know based on just how, there's also the anxiety I feel because people pay for this time. Even though literally nobody's ever been like, it's been the opposite. Everyone's like, this was great, so worth the money. Like it's testimonials out the wazoo. But in my mind, I'm like, they paid. I need to deliver. They have these expectations. Let me make sure. Like, there's a lot of anxiety on my end.
Tom. Yeah.
No, there's a ton of anxiety and a ton of stress. And then if I had that one day where it's like, yeah, you could make a huge paycheck in that one day.
You dread that day.
I would,
weeks.
Yeah, as soon as that day's over, I would feel relieved. And then I would just be like, okay, I have 4 more weeks until that day comes again, which I know maybe that's just dumb.
It's not dumb. I just, my whole point in bringing it up is that it's interesting that I guess, one, that you do have multiple ways to make money. To make, let's I don't know, 10K, right?
Sure.
10K a month. You've built your brand where we could do online courses, we could do YouTube ads, we could do consultations. Like there's a bunch of ways to make that 10K. And it's interesting that even though you have the opportunity to make 20K, you are very firm in, nope, this is what I want, this is what I need, and this is how I want to do it.
Yeah, I would love to make 20K, but I would love to do it without having to do it that way, I guess is what it comes down to.
Yeah. And I think the reason why I'm so interested in it is because I think that for people like me who made the leap, like I definitely sacrifice I'm not at the point where I can just, dictate exactly how I want to make the money. I'll take what I can get kind of thing. And you're just like, not. And, to your credit, that's because you've built the brand to the point where you can say no to many things and you're still fine.
That was intentional. Yes, that's very, very true. And I also recognize like going forward, you never know. Like what if all of these numbers that I keep talking about do keep going down where it's not just a mindset thing of like, well, I just can't focus on it. But it's literally like, oh, okay, now need to restructure things a little bit. That could be a thing that happens in the future. Our health insurance is expensive, and if one of us ever gets sick, hey, might need to open up some consultation hours, like because our country sucks at health insurance. There's stuff that could happen where like the hand is forced, but right now, like if it's gonna come down to, yeah, you could open up consultations, or you could go on a bike ride in the morning on a Tuesday and then come back feeling like the bike ride is worth so much more than any money I could make from an hour of consulting.
I love that. This is why I love you. And then the other thing is like, Oh, I totally lost it.
You love me. This is why I love you. Because the bike ride is worth more.
I know. I started thinking about how much I loved you. And I got distracted.
Wow.
I completely lost it.
That's all right.
What were we talking about?
We're talking about money.
Yes, we
and I was
were.
talking about, the how it feels to there's intangible things that money doesn't cover, like being able to do stuff like go on a bike ride, which starts my day off right, puts me in a great mood. Then if I spend the rest of the day at my desk, at my computer doing that stuff, it doesn't feel bad. I don't feel like I've been in a cave all day. I come up with good ideas. I feel like that nobody's paying me for that. You could argue I'm losing money by doing that, but it sets things up in such a way that like you'd have to really pay me just an insane amount of money to give that up.
Yeah.
It's kind of that sort of a thing. Yeah. And then, stuff like I've been poking around with sponsorships on the channel, which I talked about last week. Very minimal, but that could also be, one decent sponsorship a month could literally take the place of more than I was making consultations. And I would so much rather just have to make a video where I talk about something I like for a minute than have to then give up however many hours a month doing all the prep work and everything. And, again, if you see consultation slots open on my website, it's not like I'm dreading it or miserable or unhappy. Like I have chosen to open those and put those there, but it's just you're dealing with all the expectations of others. And so many years I spent walking into a classroom with students thinking, where does this class fit into them? What do they need out of it? Like, how are they going to not hate it? Like, what are their expectations? I need to deliver on that. And that's really stressful to me. Like that delivering on other people's expectations stresses me out so much. And so if I can just do my thing.
I guess it's been surprising that because I've seen you at your old full-time job. That was a voluntary choice to work 60 hours a week. No one told you to do that. And you didn't have to do that. You could have left at 3, but you didn't.
Yeah.
You could have gotten in at 7. You got there at 5:50. Like, why? You work weekends. You would willingly take on things. And I'm so fascinated that being your own boss, you don't do that. You don't put in it's obviously you go above and beyond to the things that you commit yourself to and dedicate yourself to. But I'm surprised that you're not even doing 40 hours because you can't, right? Like you can do that. You just choose not to. And I find that fascinating.
Yeah, because I would just get a job. That's like, I don't know how to.
Well, it's more of like the sense of security, because literally how many episodes of the Secret series was about how you were so scared of money? Like we talked about money so much. It was just like, we don't have the sense of security. We don't have the nest egg. Like if something happens, you're all good because you got the steady health insurance, like that's gone. But there's no sense of panic. If anything, you have total confidence in how you're doing everything. And that's wonderful. I'm not saying that that's bad.
So
but
far in 2021, even in the down months so far, the revenue has been significantly greater than the school paycheck was, which what it did for me. And, I'm still in touch with a lot of my teacher friends. I'm still observing that world.
Yeah.
And what it really pointed out to me, and I'm sorry if but the amount of time and stress and energy and just begging and killing yourself for not that much.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't have that perspective of like, good God, just trying to get a lunch break is like a whole ordeal. I was at a decent salary rate because I had multiple degrees and years of experience and all this stuff. But it's still not like I was in 6 figures or anything. Yeah. And if you're just starting out, you're really pulling in, I don't know, not that much more than minimum wage. And it's just like, this is not worth that. Like what you're putting yourself into, not worth that at all. Like dealing with, and then you're getting like evaluated where people who literally don't even do your job are sitting there. And I had all good administrators and evaluators.
Could see his face right now. There's like veins popping out.
But when people who don't do your job are sitting there making notes about your job, and it's just like, and just so you can beg for the opportunity to make like a
To work
low
for
end
them
middle
again.
class
Yeah.
thing and torture yourself and make yourself literally sick so that, oh, I have health insurance and I really need it because the job that I have to have it is making me sick. Like that whole thing, stepping out of that and going like, oh, I can do my thing. And I still, trust me, like I do still panic about time. I do still feel guilty. I feel like I should be doing stuff all the time. There are plenty of days where I'm
Like,
not only
I'm
stopping
just
at 3, but working till 9 or whatever.
thinking like, if I re-listen to episode 2 of the Secret
Yeah.
Series, like you were so. I mean, I was the one who was. We got into freaking arguments about me trying to get you to quit your job,
Right.
Because of all the things that you enjoy now. But you fought, man. You were like, no.
Well,
I'm not
I
quitting.
think there's stuff, and the same is probably true for you. I think there are times when I'm working where it doesn't look like I'm working, which I'm still not used to.
Yeah.
But stuff like, obviously, if I'm making a video, if I'm doing like, there's stuff where it's very obvious that I'm working.
Right.
But there's a lot of times where it's like,
I mean, the lines blend because obviously, like even us listening to podcasts, watching YouTube live streams, like all that is research that's making us better YouTube creators and better entrepreneurs and all those things. So technically that's work. But now, yeah, obviously we've made it so that the things that we do love are the things that generate money. So
I think it's Chris Do who said that when he deals, I like this philosophy when he deals with his messages and his emails and stuff, his whole thing is based on putting the ball in someone else's court. So I've always done that, but I never heard it phrased that way. And when I heard him say that, I was like, that's perfect. And so that's a lot of what I do. I think like in total for everything, there's like, I don't know, 8 email accounts that I have to check like every day that get different messages about different things. And they're whatever. It's all different facets of things. But my goal is every day to go through and put those balls in other people's courts. So there's nothing on my plate. It's all, and then the next day, like come back and put it back in theirs. Point is, that's really important because that's what like sets things in motion. That's what opens up other opportunities. That's what, helps people to decide they want to buy the course or do all the stuff that helps things keep running. But I can also do that, I can spend 30 minutes doing it on the couch. I can then take a break and have breakfast and then spend another 30 minutes doing it literally like in the backyard while the dogs are playing. And then it's like now, so it might end up taking 2 hours of time throughout the day, but it does not look anything like when it's like, okay, I'm going to leave now for the day.
And you stand and you don't sit down until you get back home at 5.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
What the heck?
And just the inefficiencies, which I think this is part of like when you hear a lot of employees protesting about like returning to the office and they're like, well, our employees aren't putting in a full work week at home anymore, so we need them in the office. But it's like a lot of employees are then saying, yeah, but the office involves commuting, it involves chatting, it involves when I need something I have to go up a flight of stairs and take an elevator and walk across whatever, so it takes me 10 minutes just to get there, to talk to the person, to realize they're not there, to walk all the way back, to send them. Like the monumental inefficiencies that exist, they don't exist in this environment. Like
right.
You have the idea, you take care of it, it's
done.
Yeah. And that honestly saves a lot of time. Like,
yeah.
But that also then opens up where I was thinking like, okay, I think now it could come down to I could do consultations or I could make an extra video every week. And I would like to see what an extra video does versus another thing. And I'd also like, I have ideas for more courses and stuff. I would rather like focus on those things right now. But anyway, that's kind of where that's at. But those are all ideas. Those are all things that just couldn't have happened before. Even doing the course was like, years. You're like, you should have a course. Yeah. But I'm going to spend a whole Christmas break or a whole summer putting that together when I'm like just trying to recover.
Right.
I can't do it. And now it's like, not only can you do it, but then you can think of the next thing and the next thing. And that's really valuable to me.
Mm-hmm.
Hope that makes sense.
Yes, it makes sense. I have nothing to add to that.
I thought you said you're wanting to add to that. No, I mean, I don't know. It's just, I guess you're right when we have things that we need or want where it's like, well, if there's a thing we're thinking about and it costs X amount of dollars and you could just do X amount of dollars more work every month, like, why don't you just do that and cover the cost of the thing? But I don't know. I honestly never even considered it that way. I didn't even look at that.
I was like, we can get the thing in a week, literally. Like, but I think here's the takeaway for people who are listening. If you are thinking about, making the leap and Tom's planted a seed or whatever, I think the big takeaway is that if you set it up right and do it how Tom did, which I have another question about that, but if you do it the way that Tom did, where, if you have a full-time gig right now, don't leave, right? But build your side thing, like work on your side thing. And it has to be a personal brand. I believe in the power of a personal brand, because if it's tied to your name and what you're good at and your specialization and who you are, that will work for you forever. Like for as long as you're alive, it will always be credited to you as a person. So work on that personal brand, whatever it is. You could figure out how to monetize it later. And then if you have a brand where you're, getting to the point where you're making an impact on people, that will bring in opportunities that even if you don't come up with the monetization ideas yourself, they will come to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your question? You said you had a question.
Oh, what would you do differently? Like if you were to, like the whole thing. I mean, YouTube from the beginning. What would you do different? Like if you were to start today.
If I were to start today, the initial part, I mean, I don't think I would change much at the beginning, because you need that exploratory phase of like, I'm going to upload a this and a that and try this and do that. And if you try to go in it, if you approach it from a money making standpoint, you've already failed. Like it's just not going to work. So like keeping it a personal thing, exploring what I like, finding out what I don't like, you need to do that. And that's going to take months to just work through that. There's nothing you can do about that. However, the thing was like fairly early on, there was at least basic stuff, like not YouTube ads because I didn't qualify for that, but I've talked about like affiliate links. I talked about products very early on. I could have put a link, and even when it's early on, your channel's small, the people who are watching, even if they're not many, they're really into it and they want to support you and they're proud of you and they're excited.
Rate is hhigher.
Yeah, and if you do an affiliate link, they're going to want to go through. And to speak to that, I was showing you this morning, I have an affiliate. I have affiliate links for Sweetwater Sound, which is a lot of audio gear. And the application that uses, I just discovered I can see what people order. I can't see who orders it, so I have no way of identifying anything. But I can see like there was an order placed for this much money. You click on it, you can see the items that were ordered, which is interesting because I can literally see like how many Rodecaster Pros and how many this is. But what I've noticed is there's a lot of big orders, things like $1,500, $2,000, $2,500, where the stuff on it, I don't even know what it is. Like I was looking up the products, I'm like, I've never heard of this, I've never used this. This person just dropped that much money. But then realizing like, especially because those links aren't everywhere, they're not as common as like Amazon links. So it probably indicates that those people needed that, went to my channel, clicked through my link, and then bought whatever they're buying, even though it's stuff I've literally never talked about, just because
they want to support.
Which is a thing that happens early. And that I was so anti that. And I thought people are going to respect me because my B&H link is just a regular B&H link and not an affiliate. Never mind the fact no one notices or cares.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I wish I didn't think that generating revenue, while it shouldn't be the end goal, doesn't mean that you're sacrificing what you set out to do or your creativity. There's so many ways to approach it to make it work for you. That like it is literally just leaving money on the table, and it probably would have helped things grow more quickly. Yeah. Like I think I added a year onto my journey by doing that.
Yeah.
So that's something that I absolutely would have changed. And just getting to the point too, I mean, it was last summer on this podcast where I admitted like I'd like to do this full time out loud to the world for the first time, which is a huge step for anybody who's thinking of doing it. Doing that earlier, because I don't even think I told you. Like you would tell me.
Gosh.
All the time.
Like literally, Tom and I never fight. I'm sure I've said this on this podcast. Tom and I very, very, very.
What? You're wrong.
Rarely,
we fight all the time. What are you talking about?
I mean,
you're crazy.
You guys, if you know us, you know that we're basically the same person.
At this
like,
point, yes.
Seriously. Did you tell the story about how we rock, paper, scissored? So we rock, paper, scissored. For the first 4 shots, we did the exact same thing.
It was until we just gave up from laughter because like da 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 da, because we were trying to figure out like what we were gonna eat or something at a restaurant. It was like, And then, yeah, I mean, yesterday, not only does it happen where like we will say the same word at the same time,
Yeah.
but yesterday we said like an entire phrase at the same time, sort of out of nowhere.
We just have the same observation. We're just the same person at
Yeah.
this point. So it's rare for us to have, disagreements. All the disagreements are really just like misunderstandings. That's really it.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, pre-Tom, doing his own thing, me trying to convince him to join the entrepreneur club was definitely a point of contention, because I just was like, oh, this is so annoying. You're so freaking capable. And now everyone here knows, okay, yeah, this was inevitable. It's just a matter of time. But, and whatever, it all happened the way that it should have. But you did not make the choice. Let's be honest.
Right.
You didn't make the choice.
I needed that. I completely needed that to happen.
Yeah.
That's
2020 made the choice.
right. And I needed something like that was going to happen.
And that's you. You're never going to be the one to do it.
To be honest, what I thought it would be, if anything, was as time went on, maybe another year or two, the channel would grow to a point where literally I couldn't do it anymore and have a job. Like, it just wouldn't be possible, and I'd have to make the choice then. And that would be if that ever happened. And of course, there's no guarantee that any kind of growth like that would ever happen. That was kind of what I was thinking. Like, if this is going to be a possibility, that would be it. Would be like a jumping off point that I don't really have control over. But if that happens, then that's where it would be. But you're right, and it's crazy. Like, there's nothing wrong with having a job. Like, the person who took my job, enjoying it immensely. Like, and I enjoyed it immensely too for a long time. I just got burnt out and had other things happening, and just had different priorities pop up. And there's nothing wrong with having a job that you enjoy. Like, it's not like everyone should work for themselves, otherwise you're wasting your time. But it's just very different to be working. It's just, I don't know. There's a lot, like you said, there's a lot that I wouldn't want to sacrifice.
There's so many things that you don't even think about.
There's so many things I had someone who I hadn't seen in 20 years randomly showed up in town this week, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to be here. Can you meet up for lunch at 12:30 on Wednesday? And I was like, I looked at my calendar. There was nothing in the calendar. I was like, yeah, sure. And it wasn't until I was done, because we spent like 2 hours or whatever. It wasn't until I was done that I was like, oh my God, I just went out for a random 2 hours on a Wednesday. Like, that would have never been possible. And then I would have missed this opportunity to reconnect with someone, or it would have been a huge source of stress of, can you meet at this weird time in the afternoon where no one actually ever wants to meet together? Cool. We'll meet then. Let me work a whole day and then be exhausted and show up here kind of frazzled and tired and like not be in the headspace to actually enjoy it. Like, it takes me a long time to shift gears mentally, and I never had the time to do that, because it was always like, minutes from this thing to the next thing to the next thing. And I guess where it's like the non 40-hour week thing, the hours that aren't part of the 40 are like mentally shifting hours, which is huge.
It's a lot of Animal Crossing.
It is. It's a great way to ease into the day. Yeah.
Sure. I'm not
exercise in the morning.
I'm not judging you, babe. I'm so proud of you. Okay, like, don't get me wrong at all.
Exercise in the morning, come home, ease into the day.
I've never seen Tom so happy. Like, it's a completely different person.
Well, that was what I was interested in, because when I first left, there was like
the honeymoon phase.
Yeah,
euphoria.
Euphoria. It was like literally just walking on the clouds. Nothing could get me down or upset me or anything. And that was kind of one of the most incredible feelings I've ever had. And now, like, it's not that it's gone, but I've been in bad moods since, like it. There's sort of you kind of equalize out, Yeah. That's what they say about, like, if you were given like millions of dollars, you would be happy, but then you just sort of like return to your base level of happiness. So what do you think about that? What do you think about, I don't know, for anyone who might want to do this and then they like, yeah, I gave my resignation. Yeah, I started my thing. I did that, super psyched. But 2 or 3 months later, that initial honeymoon phase, because you're years and years into it.
Okay, so here's what comes to mind. When I first met you, I feel like you had the same feeling.
Yes. Yes.
I saw you and I was like, I don't know what, but I want to do something or work on something together with you. I didn't know what that was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy because, the past, 3-4 years, it's just been about that.
Right.
It's just been about how can we make life changes so that me and you can work on something.
We can spend all the time together.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that for some people, of course, it's up to you and what you want out of life. But the fact that we can do exactly what we want, how we want to do it, like our problems that we work through are, wish we record a podcast about today, wish we talk about on the couples table today.
I'm so grateful.
Or which
when those
we're getting invited to speak. What should our topic be? Or, oh, here's this client that I'm thinking about working with. What do you think about that? Like, it's all stuff that we want to work through. Like all these challenges are everything that we are willingly taking on. And, we're so supportive of each other's goals and what we're capable of. And it's just so awesome to see, not only what we can come up with individually, but just to see us, kill it as a team. And, I think that you have had a completely different perspective and appreciation for us, for life, like what you can do now that you're able to do it. I don't know if that makes sense. I know that's really like,
no, it totally
ethereal.
Does. It is, but
it's not like a tangible, let's look at the green and reds of numbers and stuff.
But here's the thing. Like one of the things that I follow and read regularly, which has been very interesting because I used to check it multiple times a day, once a day, every couple days. Can't remember the last time when, which is the teachers subreddit. And it's a great place for, it's not that it's always a positive place, but it's a great place for like commiserating. It's a great place for just knowing, oh, okay, I'm not alone in dealing with something or feeling this or whatever, and reading what people are saying. Since I left my job in mid-March, it's right before spring break, right kind of before the end of the year, right around then when I would go there and do stuff, it seemed like the majority of posts that would pop up would be, 56 more days, 48 more days, whatever just the last day of school was, just that. Yeah. I just can't wait to get through these last 7 weeks, this last that. And every time you come in, it's like 10 more days, 13 more days, 23 more whatevers. And I get it. And I used to do that too. Literally, the seniors have their 50-day countdown, and it's just, you literally write it on the board and change it every day, 49, 48. And then you every year have the argument of, does it end at 0 and 0 is the last day, or is 1 the last day? So are there really 48 days or 49 days? And for me, what it really highlights is, gosh, that's a lot of time of just wishing your time away. Like, I mean, huge chunks of it. Everybody has days where you're like, today is going to be a very busy day. I don't want to do any of the things, and I just want to get through today. Everybody has those days. It happens. But when you're literally going like, only 56 more days, like you're wishing away 56 days of your life so you can get to a point where you can actually do what you want. It's scary. And that's what I had just spent so much time doing. And as soon as summer's over, you're like, okay, we have, 3-day weekend here, 3-day weekend there. Got Thanksgiving break coming up. Thanksgiving break's over. We got Christmas break's over. A couple 3-day weekends, and then spring break, and then back to summer. Okay. And like, that's just how I will put most of the stuff I want to do on hold for these times, and then do everything else the rest of the time.
I think it works because you are a person, like we are people who don't want to just waste our lives away on the couch. You know, it's one thing if you just want to literally get paid doing nothing. I don't think that Tom and I are very good examples of, helping you out with that. But your YouTube channel is fun. Like, this is literally the thing that you've been obsessed over since you were a kid, but it just so happens that it's also really impactful to, anyone who finds it. Yeah. And so you can turn it into a thing. I think that's the important thing to realize is, like, if you just think, oh, let me just get paid by doing YouTube videos, it's like, it sounds, I don't know, easier than it is. Or
I really
fun.
hate explaining it to people because I feel like I'm just explaining a scam. But...
Right, exactly. But you're doing something that how many shows, how many podcasts, how many YouTube channels have started because of you?
Right. I don't mean that
that's
in
a big deal.
Yeah, well, it comes down to the same thing of like going back to something like consultations. When you're deciding what to charge hourly, yeah, there's a part of it that for me is definitely like, what can you pay me to take me away from my own thing, which is not going to be nothing. But also, it is only an hour of time, but to get to that hour of time, you're paying for this many years of experience. So that way you don't have to go through those. I can distill it to you in an hour. That's, like, it's just sort of how stuff is valued and how it plays in and how it's all connected is like a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where like the work thing, one of the reasons I thought I could never leave was because, well, I've already sunk so much into this. It's like that sunk cost fallacy but I've already, like, I have teaching credentials. Well, do you want to use them? No, I'd be fine leaving, but I have them. Okay. Why then? Like, what,
Right.
If that is the thing that you want to do, then of course, but if not, then it doesn't really matter,
Yeah.
So I don't know that.
And I think I think that it's not rocket science. It's not anything that like you needed to, get a degree to learn how to start a business. It's hard. It's complicated. It's hard for sure, but it's totally figure outable.
Yeah.
And anybody could do it. I believe that. I believe that anybody who wants to do it, obviously commitment is like the biggest factor. Like you obviously have to be committed because it's just going to feel like nothing's working every day. You just have to push through that every day. But if you're willing to do that, I really think that, it's possible. You could literally design your life however you want it to be.
And I think the key there, at least in my case, was doing that stuff prior to making the leap because I don't, if I had left my job and then was like, how do we form an LLC? How do we do this? Where does money go?
Well, that's what I did.
I know, but that's
real.
Lots of people do it that way.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it can't work. I'm just saying for me and my personality type, it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
It's important to recognize that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you don't you can do it. Whatever works, but like I would recommend that. And that's why I like talking to a lot of my teacher friends and colleagues. We all have there's a similar personality type, let's just say, that's probably going to be more hesitant to do those kinds of things. But that's why it's like, don't wait until you have no other options and you have to, oh my gosh, what do I do? Start a thing and figure it out and take the baby steps while it's not something you need to rely on.
Yeah, and just for the record, like my headspace 5 years ago was I had 6 months of savings.
Right.
And I was just like, the countdown begins.
Yeah, you gave yourself.
My job. Yeah, and I was just like, I'm gonna either figure this out or get another job. I knew I was hireable, so it's not like I couldn't just get another job somewhere else. I knew I didn't want to work at the place I was working at, so it's not like that was.
Yeah, so something had to change.
Yeah.
You knew there was an option, so you could either get another job immediately or give yourself that 6 months to see if it works.
And I had built such a local network that all it was going to take is one Facebook post of like, I need a job, guys, and I knew I would be taken care of. So, that's my credit for building that network over my career. But so it wasn't just like I threw everything to the wind and, like, let's just sail the ship or whatever. But I didn't have anything lined up. Like I built it from the ground up, and it was a lot of, I'm willing to eat ramen and
I'm still willing to eat ramen.
Sacrifice a lot of, oh my gosh. Like, I mean, it was, this is not my podcast. But
no,
it was,
please.
It was a lot of sacrificing in terms of like, I missed a lot of some of my bestest friends' bachelorette parties because I couldn't afford their like trip to Hawaii and all that. Like, it was not easy to no longer live the lifestyle of someone who has a stable paycheck, but I don't regret it for a second. Are you kidding me? Like, I don't regret it. So, I mean, between the two of us, I think that we're very good, cool examples of, how to, how to design a life you love and to approach it very differently. To approach it very, very, very differently.
So as we head up on an hour, thank you for spending time out of your busy schedule to wrap up our season.
Sense? Is that where you wanted to go?
It's all fine. It's just that's exploring it. This ain't a scripted show. You didn't read your script. What would you say? So season 4 of podcast is ending. I'm gonna take a few weeks off just to have a break, and then also season 5. I kind of want to spend a little time outlining some stuff. So the podcast will return in July, and with season 5, I'm gonna have a little bit of time off from the podcast, not from other stuff. What advice would you give, knowing where I'm at now, mentally, creatively, financially, heading into the summer season, the next few months of figuring things out as self-employed, to me or to someone in my position? Like, do you have any advice that you would give, or something where like, this is kind of the time to think about this thing?
Gosh, it's hard.
I know.
Because I would never be your consultant.
What was interesting?
What
was interesting though was when you said it's not how I would do it, but it's what you're doing. It definitely gave me a flash of like, I'm doing things wrong. That was how I felt.
Yeah. See, that's why I don't like.
But that's why I'm curious, and I kind of want to like poke a little bit more. Like, is there an oversight? Is there something like that is in my blind spot and I'm not aware of, or is it just a different approach, or is there something like? I mean, I remember last summer when Peter Lindgren was like, have you ever thought of changing your YouTube channel name? And you were like, yeah, oh my God. And I was like, okay, here's a thing that's been kind of percolating over here for a while, but didn't have an outlet, like that kind of a thing.
Nothing really stands out to me.
I mean, if it's literally just like, keep doing, like, stay the course, that's also helpful advice too, to go like, yeah, it seems like this is great and you should keep doing this, or not.
I mean, I have ideas, but they're just ideas. There's nothing that's like, is there this glooming oversight that, like the channel name? There's nothing like that, but there's things that, obviously through all the research and things that I'm learning, I always take it through the lens for both of us, and I'm like, oh, this is a cool thing that Tom could do. And I know you would never want to do this. I know you never want to do it, so I don't even want to say it.
Can you say one of the things?
I don't know if you guys know this, but every time I pitch an idea to Tom, I know when he's just going to shut up in his like tortoise shell and just defense up. And then I just feel like I shouldn't even bother saying it in the first place. Anyway.
In a safe space.
In a safe space.
Where maybe I'll be open to it, and if I'm not, I won't violently reject it. Can you share one of those ideas?
A live cohort class.
Okay. How would that work?
I don't know how it would work, but I think that you're obviously a professional teacher. Mm-hmm. Live cohort classes are I don't want to say trending. They are trending, but
it's one of the most popular questions I get about my course is there a live component to this?
It's a thing that people are open to, because I think that's the thing that's missing with online courses is the connection that you would feel in a classroom with other people. And obviously that's what the cohort does. And I think that the way that you do it, I wouldn't say this for everybody. I think there's a lot of people who should just make the online course and you don't need a support piece, but because your thing is so hands-on and so a very specific, certain Tom Buck way, I think, and plus you're a professional teacher, I think that you can really create an experience that would be honestly life-changing and something that would be completely unforgettable for the people who take it. Like, I could imagine it, this is a poor example, but I was in a co-ed fraternity in college. It was a community service fraternity. And like, I'll never forget my pledging, my pledge class. Some of my bestest friends came out of that pledge class, and it was like some of the best memories I had in college. I honestly feel that you can create some camaraderie or some connection with a live cohort class that's like, oh, you're in the, kind of like our mastermind members. They're like, oh yeah, we're part of the, I'm a fellow mastermind member or whatever. I think that you can create that like, oh, I was in like the first Tom Buck cohort or something. And there's this sense of pride and community that people have that builds lifelong friendships and, businesses, collaborations, who knows what comes out of that. I think that would be super cool. And it would, obviously be like a higher ticket thing. But I think that people are willing to, you've, paid your dues, you've shown your value. That's not even something you need to worry about. But the reason why I hesitate with even suggesting it is because I know you don't want to be hands-on. This is why you quit, because you didn't want to do this anymore. You like the fact that you could do a YouTube video and you never really have to, aside from comments and a few messages here and there, and that's it. Like, you don't.
So I don't hate this idea.
This is why you're not doing consultations, because you don't talk to anybody.
Well, so here's what's interesting about that. And I'm sorry, I hope this is still relevant and applicable, but I'm going to ask you this as soon as the show's over. So I might as well just ask you this now. Do you have an idea of what that would be about, or just that's for me to figure out?
I think it's both. I have ideas. But I've thought about mine more than I've thought of yours.
Yeah, well, so that makes sense. So here's the thing though that I'll say, which might be helpful to hear, is when I look at the way because you do consultations and you love them.
I freaking love them, dude. Like tomorrow I have 5 appointments. 2 are consultations and one's a mastermind, and then 2 are just like other meetings. But like I love them.
Your consultations though that people book are coaching, right? Like
they're both. So the way that I on the website, they're called consultations because I don't want to coach anybody that I haven't consulted with at least once. So I don't even, what people do if they want to take me on as their YouTube coach is that they just book multiple consulting sessions. And there's an accountability plan, and at the end of a consultation with a person that I know is going to book again, there's homework, there's, okay, this is what I'm going to work on. So there's that like follow up. Wait, did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it did. But it seems like from what I have seen, at least when you do the consultations that people can book, a lot of it is like brainstorming YouTube ideas, like YouTube consulting. You're looking at what they're doing, you're kind of giving them ideas, you're pointing them in directions, or opening their eyes to things they might not be aware of otherwise. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not a YouTube coach. Like I obviously, like, we do the mastermind. I do, like, I like talking about YouTube, but that's not a thing I position myself as anywhere. So when my consultations come in, the majority of them are kind of like tech support, where it's like setting up a studio.
I don't do any of that.
And that I think is where some of my anxiety comes in, because it's a lot of times people having really specific problems. And sometimes when they book, I know I can solve the problem right away. I'm like, cool, this is exactly it. And then I'll sometimes set up mock things for that. So if they're using this equipment, I will set up that equipment, so you can see why it takes a lot of time. Like there's prep work that goes into this.
Let me tell you what mine is. Literally, I am probably napping until 10 minutes before the meeting starts.
Not how mine go.
And then I have a very small questionnaire that's like, what would you like to accomplish out of our session? And then like I'll look at their YouTube channel. I've done this long enough and I've looked at enough YouTube channels. It's very easy for me to identify, like, here's, room for improvement, things to change, very quick changes, blah, 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 blah. So 0 prep work. I probably already have my room turned on because I try to stack meetings on the same. I would rather have a meeting full of 5 meetings just so that the next day I could have 0 meetings. So I try to stack everything in one day. So I love the back to back to back to back. Like I would rather do that than start and stop and, have to put on makeup every day. And there's 0 follow up. Are you kidding me? Like I'm not going to say, I've learned that just what I do is I start the consultation. I say, hey, I just gave you permission to record this meeting. You can watch it as much as you want.
You taught me that.
Yeah. And then that's the follow up. That's what you get. And like, obviously I make it known to them, or they have the impression that if they want to reach out to show me a quick video or,
I do that.
Could you just take a look at this real quick? No one has taken advantage of that.
I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to like bill you for the minute or anything.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, I wouldn't say that there's the 1 hour consultation is now a 2 hour consultation. Mine is literally like an hour and 10 minutes start to finish. And then I'm done and I have a great time. And then what I love about my clients, I don't know how I did it, but obviously it's a certain person that gravitates towards me. And the people that I have had the pleasure of working with, I have a blast. Like, I love my consultations. Like, they're all so
I have
much
the
fun.
same feeling of the time during it. It's great. It's everything around it that's stressful, especially because a lot of it is very specific tech support. So it's not, every once in a while someone will be like, hey, I'm thinking of starting a podcast, thinking of doing a YouTube channel. I'd love to like kick around ideas and get insights. That is simpler, but most of it is I'm setting up this thing, I'm doing that. And that's where like the expectation thing comes in, because there's a concrete result that I feel they need to get from this, which is there's a problem, we talk, and now the problem is solved. And it goes so far as like, sometimes I have a camera. If they're doing a Rodecaster thing, there's a camera that's on my Rodecaster screen so I can walk them step by step, go to the menu, click this, do that. Sometimes I'll have them FaceTime around their studio with their phone so I can say like, take that cable, connect it here, put that cable over here, do that. Like it gets, like it's very tech supporty, which is why, it is successful if at the end of it, they're like, oh my gosh, it solved the problem. Then I know I did a good job, but I never feel confident that I'll be able to do that going into it.
I didn't realize that our consultations were so different. To me, that's not, I think that providing service, like the same way that if our AC was broken, we need to call the guy.
Yeah, and then the AC needs to be working when they leave.
Yeah, that should be a completely different price tier than, hey, I need to brainstorm, I want to pick your brain.
Because if somebody wants to like, hey, if that kind of thing, I enjoy those. People ask to do that.
That's what I do. No one's going to ask me for tech support. Are you kidding? Like, I don't even know my own tech support.
So this is why, I don't know then.
I mean, YouTube, they'll ask me about YouTube, but like, I can't help you with your camera. Like, I don't even know what camera I have,
I don't know if it involves me then reframing consultations.
I think that you should have like troubleshooting tech, like blah, blah, $1,000 an hour, period. Don't even... Because seriously, that's how much it costs to hire to
have the guy come out.
To have the guy come out, exactly. If you want to be the guy, if you need Tom to be the guy that's going to come out, then it's $1,000 an hour. Bam! I don't even care what the problem is, but it's, or at least it's $1,000.
Tom doesn't get out of bed for less than 4 figures.
And then if it's just like strategy, brainstorm,
yeah. Those I would like to do more of that kind of stuff. Yeah, just, hey, I'm starting a channel. I don't even know what I'm doing. Like,
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, if I could do consultations all day, every day, I would.
So that's interesting. But when you talk about a live cohort class, the thing that's interesting to me is, I don't know if it could, because it's a class. Like just like when people take the course, you want them to finish the course and go like, yeah, I can now do the thing that I wanted to do when I started. The same thing would be true with a live cohort. Like I've reached a certain level. I don't know what it would be about. However, a thing that has popped up, and I was just telling you about this the other day, since I've stopped teaching, when I'm teaching in class, there's always things that are popping on my radar. And the first thought is like, I can bring this in. I can how do I bring this in the classroom? How do I tell them about this? How do I make a lesson out? Like, this is a thing that I can use as a tool to teach people stuff and do that. And that still happens. I come across stuff and I'm like, oh, but I don't have
somewhere.
It's not. Yeah. And this could potentially scratch that itch of I am just discovering. I know YouTube videos can do that because it's like, hey, like I discovered, I'll make a YouTube video all about it. But it's very different than, there's a level of polish that doesn't have to exist when you're doing it in a classroom thing where it's like, it's almost workshop-y and that. I don't know. I feel like there's an itch that could be scratched through that in a really fun way.
And you have always been a person that's like, I'm going to do it my way. I am doing it my way. I've tried other ways. You always end up going back to your way. And I think that for this, like, this is where, okay, Tom, seriously, no holds barred, or whatever the expression is.
That's the bar. The expression.
That's the bar.
We're over an hour in. You know what's going to happen.
You design your class exactly the way that you want it. There's no California ed code.
Ugh.
There's no Fed code. There's no...
I'm fed up with that code.
There's not like it's literally 100% up to you.
I'm going to have follow-up questions for you about this, but we don't have to do them on the podcast. Because it's actually interesting. So see, I like this idea you brought up.
Wow,
I think it could be
I'm
something.
surprised.
Your face. This should have been a video podcast.
I don't put makeup on, babe.
Okay, so I think this is probably a good point to wrap up the season right here. Is there anything you want to say to me or anybody as we draw to a close?
I should say I'm proud of you. I hope you know.
Well, and I want to say how grateful I am to you for not only supporting me, and I know you've done that since the beginning, but really just really being, that has never been a source of anxiety. Like, what is she going to think? What's like that? And I know for a lot of people, it's a huge one.
Yeah,
like,
I know. I laugh because I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I mean, for so many people, they're like, I want to do this, but my partner is saying blah, 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 blah. And to know that that's not even, had I chosen to stay at my job, you would have supported me. When I chose to leave, you supported me. Like, if I don't want to do client calls, you support me. If I do, you do. Like, whatever, you find a way to like make it work and understand it. And I really appreciate that very, very much. Can't put a price on that.
There you go.
So where do you want to direct people if they want to connect? Maybe book one of those amazing consultations.
Yeah, you just go to my website. All my stuff's there. HeatherJustCreate.com.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. And you know where to reach out to me. I'm at SoDarnTom and all the things. You can send me an email, even though we'll be in between podcast seasons for the next few weeks. Tom at enthusiasmproject.com.
Go check out my podcast. I started a podcast.
Yeah, there you go. That'll fill in the blanks. How can people do that?
You can go to from1to100podcast.com.
There we
or
go.
search from 1 to 100 wherever you get your podcasts.
There we go. So I'm not going to be having them for the next few weeks, but you can just hang out with Heather instead. Yeah, that's a great idea. And I'll be back sometime in July. I don't know exactly when, but it'll be good. It'll be fun. Thanks so much for going on this journey. I really appreciate it. And I always appreciate all like the support and the kind messages and all of that great stuff.
If you guys are interested in his live cohort class, tell him.
Yeah, actually do tell me those things. Yes. Anyway, thank you so much. Appreciate it. All the support. Take care. Enjoy your time. And we'll see you next season.
Bye.